Alrighty. Welcome everyone to another edition of Nightlight. Tomorrow at noon initiates a new day of change. For a year, America has been undergoing fundamental changes, but so has the rest of the world. Throughout the year of the Rona, dualities have become glaringly obvious. For example, the elites mandate masks for us, but they exempt themselves from their own laws. First Amendment is for everyone except for when you disagree with me. Don't wear a mask and be an individual. Wear a mask and be an anonymous comrade in the collective. The cold and flu season is at a bare minimum because people wear masks, but the Rona is uncontrolled because people aren't wearing masks. Does truth matter anymore? We've been following the recommendations of celebrity doctors, and the virus is worse if you believe other news sources other than Nightlight. So have opinions replaced science? They have mom and pop stores are rapidly failing, but the big box stores have a monopoly. Final example, we have riots on both coasts, but the DC rioters are called a murderous mob and are arrested. The Portland looters get a free pass and are described as being mostly peaceful protests. These dualities are like cult thinking, either or, black, white, us versus them. Maybe the answer is in the middle, a gray area. To help us make sense of these contradictions, we have a returning guest. Joshua Schiperioosua is here, and he believes we have an optimistic future ahead of us. We just need to learn how to accept the truth, and we're on the right road. Joshua's website is cse.crystalskullexplorers.com. Joshua also has free ebooks and a captivating interview with Gene Decoder to send to you if you would like to contact Joshua after the show. Hey Joshua, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Mark, for inviting me back.
Oh yeah, always glad to have you on any show I'm doing. We've had so many people become subscribers and new people tuning in since you and Barbara were did a show in July. I think it was last summer. Do a little bit of background on you. Your publications are of a mystical and religious nature. But before we begin discussing the message of Rjis.
Rjis, that's correct.
Rjis, okay. Let's look at the formative experiences that you are drawing from. You call your journalism career a calling. So let's start there. Why do you deem it a calling?
Well, I consider myself to be a very spiritual person. Mm-hmm. And I remember that when I was in my mid-teens, I couldn't go to sleep at night because I kept thinking that the things that I'm being taught in school and the understanding of, how things work in reality, there's something to it that is of a much greater depth. And I think that the reason why I was thinking that is because I believe that all of us have a part of ourselves, which has higher wisdom inside, regardless whether you've studied it or whatever, because I believe that we are each part of Creator. We're each a piece of Creator. And what I've noticed is that, over the years, different people have a time where it's like some opening or some series of events happens for them, and it causes them to seek, let's call it a higher truth than what they have been exposed to, like through normal, education and so on. So even in my early 20s, after I got out of college, I remember in the late 70s and the early 80s, I just felt like, I needed to know the answer. Something was missing. So, I was living in Chicago at the time, and I started to participate in different groups and classes, and eventually I joined some groups. And basically, I just felt like my calling was that as I was encountering very interesting and amazing information, it's my task to share it in whatever form I could. And so, especially like where we are now, it's so easy between social media, being on the internet, creating your own websites, having blogs, writing books, like the new books that we do and the one that we'll be talking about today. We work with Amazon in order to, be able to publish it and do it without having to spend exorbitant amount of money. So really, I think in my formative years, I started to awaken, and I found some very interesting things which I felt were important for other people to know. So I used every form of media that I could, and I also began to actually at first, I called myself an Aquarian Age networker because I found myself traveling, going from place to place, sometimes helping people to connect with each other who had similar ideas or had projects where one person had a piece and another person didn't. And, eventually it grew from there. And then in the early 1980s, well, let's see, it's hard to remember because there was so much that's happened. And I'll be going on 66 this year, so. But I think it was 1983 that I finally had a chance to meet a crystal skull, and that when that happened, that seemed like maybe this is what I came here to do in this life, is to explore what the indigenous people call sacred artifacts and see how could the crystal skulls be of benefit to all of humanity, because as you said in the introduction, and as we continue the interview, hopefully we'll discuss some of the experiences I had. I have visions in my mind, and I can only accept that no matter what's happening right now, and of course there are great things going on, and we're sitting here, when we made the discussion to have this interview, we had no idea that January 19th, we would be sitting here this evening not knowing and guessing and hoping what could happen tomorrow that will bring this world and be a catalyst to bring us into, a time of peace or a golden age, or, one of my stories, I call it the new dawn. So for a very long time, regardless of events happening, outside myself, outside of all of us, public events and probably events going on that we may not have any idea about, I've always felt, I've always seen in my mind that eventually we will have paradise. That's the word that comes to me, where, there'll be total freedom and people will be able to explore any aspect of life, inner or outer. We will have direct contact with the galactics. I mean, there's a lot of people that call themselves whistleblowers who discuss that, we've been having this contact for a long time with these ETs, or I like to call them the galactics. So I think as we're sitting here this evening on January 19th, we're on the precipice of some amazing events that are getting ready to happen. The only thing I would suggest to your listeners is that each one of us has our own unique perspective and experience. And what has always happened to me is I've met some amazing people traveling the world doing, spiritual or paranormal or whatever you want to call it, research, investigations. As we come together to share the different pieces of life that we've experienced, this is how we start to get a sensing of the whole. And the other thing I feel expressed to say here at this moment is I think that what's happening or what's going to happen or where we're going in the future, or how will we get to this positive future that I feel will be here by 2037 to 2040, which is not that long away. It is an act of the divine. The divine is involved in what's happening. And the other thing I think that's happening right now is everything is being revealed. This is a word that I keep hearing inside of myself. It's being revealed. The good with the not so good. I think that the true history of what's happened to our world and why events have happened and so on, this is going to be revealed, who we are as a race, what is our relationship to the universe. We're living in a very special time. It can be the best of times or the worst of times. It just depends upon how you look at it. So I hope in our interview today, and I'm not saying, like I have some secret sources or whatever. I'm going with my intuition and my inner visions and so on, that perhaps part of what we will discuss, might inspire people, and that we continue. I think what it is, it's the collective consciousness of humanity. We are all co-creators of what is going to happen to us going into the future. And one of the things, I don't know where this came from, if it was through an experience or if it's just logical, makes logical sense or whatever, but there's a saying that has come to me over the years: why create potential futures that may never happen? Because we're sitting on a precipice where a lot of people have great anxiety about where we're going. Right. And, should we believe what the major media is telling us? We have alternative media, Telegram, a lot of things. Telegram is being used now to share a lot of different things. So a lot of different people have different thoughts and different ideas about where we're headed. So for myself, I can only speak for myself here. I have always seen, no matter what's going on outside, that we are heading in this timeline, okay? And I don't know if the listeners understand, what a timeline is, but I believe that there are infinite timelines for planet Earth, infinite possibilities. Like, I once got a message. This is the only way I can relate this to. I once was sitting kind of like in a meditative stance, just alone by myself. And I thought inwardly, and I was hoping I was speaking to God or Creator, whichever term you want to use. And I was saying to this intelligence, what purpose do we serve in the big things? Because I think for most of us, we think like God or Creator is, beyond anything we can comprehend. And we're just one individual, one person. So what can we contribute to Creator by being who we are? Regardless of the mistakes we make or the strengths we have, or what purpose do we serve? And this voice inside said to me, your experiences, of course. Now, let me try to explain that. And I think in one of the free ebooks that I'm offering, I talk about this a little bit more. So if your listeners are interested in getting these 3 free ebooks that we have, which you mentioned, well, I'll tell them the best way how they can do that. So what it means is that each of us is unique, like a unique note in God's infinite symphony. We have a unique set of experiences, and it's our experiences, and by being who we are, that is what Creator receives from us So it means we can never do anything right or wrong. All we can do is be ourselves and try to be the best that we can be. And so it doesn't matter if an individual, let's say, takes a light path, if they take a dark path. That soul, that person, that individual, on some level, is choosing to go through their life to have that set of experiences. So what I'm being inspired to say is we're sitting here on January 19th, all wondering what will be happening tomorrow, which direction is our world going to go, is that we have something to do with creating that future. And how would it hurt? And I asked this question of, I was on the other side yesterday. I interviewed this gentleman, Gene Decode, and I said to him, it appears to me that the best thing that we could all do at this moment, instead of worrying about potential futures, which might never be, why not just ask God and visualize in my mind that we are going to see a positive reality, that we won't accept any other conceivable possibility. And even if we have no idea how is this going to happen, which of the various scenarios that are being talked about, which we can get into a little more detail, but again, they're all different kind of scenarios that are being discussed now. Why not just pray to God, ask the divine, visualize that we're going to see a positive future? I believe, this is my belief, we are on the cusp, we are on the cutting edge of a major transformation that's going to totally change all of our lives. And also I did ask Mr. Decoder, because he can see these different timelines of the earth. This is what he talked about, which got me so excited, which is why I wanted to do my own interview of him. He says in the interview, we are on a positive timeline. So what would happen if we just assume, if we just believe, regardless of whatever happens tomorrow, whatever happens within the next month, or whatever, this is going to be our future? How would that hurt? Just let's believe in that. So because of the answer I received from this voice that Creator receives from us by the uniqueness of who we are, we can decide collectively, yes, we want to have a positive timeline. And so that's all I've seen, and I've had some experiences, which again are in one of the free ebooks I offer, which I call the Messages for Rjis, which actually Rjis is a guide, but Rjis says to me, Joshua, I'm who you will become in this lifetime, in your future, and I can show you what it's like then. And there is one time where Rjis wrote through me when I was in Brazil. I don't know if people know this, but Brazil has a very, very high vibrational energy. And, I'm just sitting there with my computer, and I'm writing. It was kind of like a story I was telling, which eventually turned in what I call Crystal Skull Chronicles, which I have not really published that. We actually have the entire story written out, but for some reason I haven't felt inspired yet to release it. And when I reread what was written through me, it sounds like me, but it wasn't the me in the moment, and the way it was expressed, it was like, did that come through me? Could this have been my future self talking from the future? Now, some people might say, well, how is it possible you could communicate with your future self? And so in my travels and through my experiences, I have come to understand that in the highest essence of truth, there is no time and there is no space. But those things, time and space, or I don't know if you want to say illusion of it or whatever, that is what forms the reality of the earth at this time, which we say is in, the 3D physical reality. We function by moving forward in time. We can't go back in time, and moving around in space. But if there is no time and no space, then I could be speaking to who I become in the future. But it also means, and this is very hard for us to understand being in a physical body, how could each of us be in the same space at the same time always? Like, let's take, for example, what happened with my father. My father passed away in October of 2019. And I felt inspired because I have a brother and sister, and my uncle, he only had one brother, so the three of us spoke before he was buried. And what I did, and I was very inspired to do this, is as I felt my father's presence, in a certain direction from me. This is one of my gifts. Sometimes I can feel the presence of spirit around, or they'll talk with me, and then I'll communicate the messages that they give. And I felt my father there, and I felt inspired to talk with him and to explain to him what new adventures were coming up for him. Because in life he was afraid of death, and he actually died. When it gets late at night, unfortunately, as you get older, you forget the names of words and things. He had, I can't remember. It's where he would forget, and he lost himself.
Sundowners?
No, well, something of that nature. But anyway, this is why he died, because it was attack of his brain. His brain
Alzheimer's?
But it's it's the other one that's associated with Alzheimer's. But so in the end, he wasn't really there. Occasionally he would come out when I saw him and talk to me, but he just whittled away, and it was very sad. But after I explained to his spirit that was standing there, somehow, and again, maybe this is my gift, is I would be able to link into him vibrationally. This is how I do my sessions. I link into the person vibrationally, and then I feel what it's like to be them. Let me take a drink here. I'm talking a lot now. And I was checking in to see how things were going for him. And we think that when a person passes away, they're very, very far away in some dimension, very far away from us. But the idea of no time and no space means that everything is right next to each other, all happening at the same time in the same place. So this is how I explain, how could I communicate with my future self? The only way this is possible is that, yes, it's part of the same soul, but there is no time and space. So I'm going to let you turn it back to you so you can ask more of your questions, Mark.
Well, I have a number of questions. Because we do, people are worried about tomorrow. They're also staying. Others are positive. For the last year, I've seen that. I'm aware of people can't be with family that might be in a nursing home or something. I'm aware of that, but many people who are really more concerned about staying connected with someone, just send someone a message, hey, you doing okay? Like that kind of thing. What you're talking about with the being unique and just expressing your way of communicating with people, such as just being concerned about their well-being. If you haven't spoken to them for a while, it's reason to be concerned. But I think out of this, the gloom that's just been hanging over us for the last year, there is a lot of positive changes in people where they are not so self-centered as they were pre-COVID.
Right. So what you're saying is that through the challenge of COVID, that being it was a challenge, that it brought out some of the better aspects of a person.
Yeah.
Because, they were really being challenged and they would have to use their inner gifts in order to deal with this.
Yeah.
So I agree.
I just in hearing, from more people on a regular basis now than was prior to January 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So you make new friends. Just compare notes. What's going on in your area, and just asking.
Right.
How about your area?
Right.
Area.
So,
it's pretty obvious that this was a bioweapon, but it brought people together more than it destroyed them.
well, I think what COVID represented was an ultimate challenge for all of humanity. And regardless of which theory you subscribe to, where did it come from, who is responsible, why was it released, is it really as dangerous as people say or not? I mean, I've been studying many people on the internet, watching videos, reading, talking to people, and so on. So I agree with your sentiment that because it changed the way of our life, most people as 9 to 5, and they were living a certain type of life, and then all of a sudden this disrupted it, that they had to look at other aspects of themselves. They had time, literally, to look at other aspects of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that way, it could be seen as a positive. I think, and this comes from my coma experience, like when I started hearing about COVID January, February of 2020, I felt like, this is, I think you have to say on the earth, that we have the darkness and the light. This was an attempt to control. And but at the same time, if someone is challenged with that, then it has the potential to bring out some of the gifts that they may not even be aware that they had. Or, as you said, it brings more people together who wouldn't come together normally to work together to find a solution. So I think most people who are following a spiritual path, it could sense inwardly that, our world was moving towards some ultimate challenge between light and dark, and that these things, had been hidden behind. But I also think, too, because Mother Earth is continuing to raise her frequency and vibration, like many people say, we're moving to a 5D reality, which is going to be the paradise, I believe, that I see, is that it's bringing out the truth, no matter what the truth is, whether we like it or we don't like it. And what 2020 was about is that we had to face more aspects of this reality here on Earth, and to see if we as human beings wanted to participate. Because a lot of people, I think, in the past, they would just, we elect our representatives in the government and we trust that they're going to work on behalf of the people. But now we're starting to see that, maybe this isn't the case. Maybe these representatives are working for themselves, or they have other intentions, or there's other people, who have great wealth that are paying them to do things which are not for the benefit of all. So it's putting it in front of all of our faces. And I need to come back to what Mr. Decode said in his interview and what he's been talking about. So it's almost like if there are these parallel timelines, okay, which I believe there are. Like, I was talking to a friend, and The Field of Dreams is one of my favorite movies, with Kevin Costner the ghosts that come out of the cornfield and so on. But there is a Mandela effect with that movie. And I was talking to a friend who actually heard Mr. Decode in another interview, I think the one I heard, where he's talking about the parallel timelines. And I tried to explain to her what I think he was trying to tell her. And then I asked her, I said, when you saw that movie and the voice started speaking to Kevin Costner while he's in the cornfield, did the voice say to him, if you build it, they will come, or if you build it, he will come? Which one is it for you, Mark?
I thought it was they.
Well, that was her answer. But if you go back into the movie, okay, and I did this a couple of times, you will find that Kevin Costner hears, if you build it, he will come. Now, first, he thought he will come meant Shoeless Joe Jackson, his father's hero. And his father, of course, had passed away at this point. But actually, at the end of the movie, Shoeless Joe says to him, if you build it, he will come. No, Ray, this wasn't for me or the other ball players from the Chicago White Sox, which is why people think he said they, meaning the 8 players from the 1919 White Sox who were expelled because of a scandal around betting and money. He was saying to Kevin Costner, if you build it, he will come. And then he looks at his father, the spirit of his father when he was younger playing baseball, and he's on the field. And then Kevin Costner, who left his father before he could say goodbye to him and that he loved him, he had his chance, his penance, let's say, to meet his father and talk to him again. So the reason I'm bringing this up, and of course there's many other Mandela effects. Some people believe Mandela died in prison, and other people know. And again, and this is the timeline I believe we're in, where he died after he was the president of South Africa. Is that people are actually deciding right now which timeline they want to be in. Do they want to be in the positive timeline, which according to Mr. Decode, that's the one we're in right now. So if that's true, then that means regardless of who's going to be the next president of the United States, because I don't want to get into, politics or judgment of people or whatever. We don't want to talk about that. Whoever's going to be president, or however the government, because I have some other thoughts about how the government may form, that we may have a different form of government, which may start tomorrow, I don't know, or it may take some time. This timeline right now that we're in, all the people listening to our interview right now, I know is a positive one. I know it is a positive one because art just shows me what the future is, and also because of this experience where I was in a coma for about 2 days. I was struck from behind by a vehicle while I was walking on a main street in Las Vegas. This vehicle was probably going 50 or 60 miles an hour. The only physical, when I came back, from the coma, I know that my ankle was greatly bruised, and I was very low energy, and I think my shoulders were very sore. Well, what I know happened to me at that point is I was taken out of my body, and my body was in the hospital, and they had to chain me down, so I assumed the wandering souls in the hospital said, oh, there's nobody inside there, so we're going to go in there and experience it. I was taken into some other dimensions. I was at a meeting, and they showed me, different potential futures. They were looking at how can we assist humanity, this being either dimensional beings or galactic beings. How can we assist humanity? What sequence of events will be the most powerful that will awaken humanity? Because the God's honest truth, regardless of who a person is, what their orientation is, they are a child of the divine, they are a child of God. The spirit of Creator is inside of everything. We are a unique note in God's infinite symphony. But what Mr. Decoder has been saying is in my interview, he talked about this would be a positive timeline, and there were 7 other ones that were very similar. But then there were also, for lack of a better word, call it an Armageddon timeline, where whatever you want to call these people who are into themselves. You mentioned the cabal or the elite or the globalists. They have many names. Into the money, they want the control. They win, and so then their plan comes in. Like there was another person I heard that it resonated with me. He was talking about that he was, a whistleblower. He talked about a lot of things related to UFOs and Area 51 and the whole thing. And he said, they have a plan by 2024 with the advanced holographic technology they have to stage a mock invasion of the Earth. Where we see the ships and people are afraid and everything. It would be like, movie effects.
Is that the Project Bluebeam?
I'm not sure. But that could be. I've heard that name before. Because I think there are some evident truths that we know for sure related to the extraterrestrials. The whistleblowers have talked about since the 1930s. The Americans and the Germans have had contact with different galactic races. They've made certain agreements. I believe part of the positive future that we're moving in is that at some point in time, however this happens, that we will have access to very advanced technologies that were gifted to us by extraterrestrials. I believe the day after Roswell, Corso was talking about, the Roswell crash and how from that ship they were able to get very advanced technologies, which I think, the computers we use today, which with microchips, that all came from there. It's very obvious because there was a big jump in computers and advanced technology.
Right.
So I think what's happening is all of these different ideas and theories and so on, there is a big reveal that's coming. We're going to know the truth of these things. And the only thing that we can't say is, we each have a different feel or idea or hope. There's a lot of people hoping that through whatever's going to start happening tomorrow, that this will eventually lead to a positive future, that these technologies will be released, that there will be a new money system. A lot of people talk about Jasara and Nasara based on gold, that all these good things that are within humanity's capability to offer to all the people of the planet, it's going to be offered into the new future. And I believe that is what this timeline is. I believe that's what Rjis is telling me, and that's what I saw when I was at this meeting during my coma experience. Because what happened is after I went through whatever I saw, and I think I was there to represent how human beings would respond to what these loving beings wanted to do to help to awaken humanity. I remember as I was coming to the door, and I knew if I went through there, then I would go back to the earth and back into my body. I was talking to, it appears to be like, a person, a man, a male figure, who apparently I knew, and I was begging him, please, remember all the things I saw while I was here. And he kept saying, no, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to remember it, because if you do, you can't be who you are when you go back. You won't be able to do the things that you're meant to do. However, I will tell you one thing. As events that you saw there start happening on the earth in front of you, you will know the essence of what it's about. So, in my view, although there have been some very interesting things that have changed for people and awakened from people, like with the COVID and the pandemic, I knew that and this is my opinion, and there's of course many other people who agree with this, but unfortunately we're a divided planet now. And I know this because when I've posted these things I believe are true for people to consider, I've had people come against and say, no, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about, this is the way it is. And this is the key, is every other person, there's two aspects. Every other person around us is our brother and our sister, and they have the right to believe whatever they want to believe. They have the right to choose which reality they want to be in. Do they want to be in a reality of peace and harmony and not give their power away to fear, or do they want to go through the experience of fear?
Yeah, that was the uniqueness that you mentioned earlier in the show. We're all
Right.
unique people. Yeah.
Right. So what Mr. Dakota was talking about is that we each right now have choice. Which timeline do we want to be with? Do we want to be in the positive timeline, or do we want to go through the more challenging Armageddon? I'm assuming the Armageddon timeline is where, people have to be vaccinated, have to wear masks, have no freedom, basically what communists represent. So what we're going through right now, in a sense, is an undeclared war, but it's really a war of consciousness. So I asked him this in the interview. So let's say a person is coming from more fear. Does that mean that they will switch with their counterpart, in other words, another Joshua or another Mark, who exist in a timeline where the fear and the globalists are in control, versus people working for freedom and to work for harmony and for peace and to help each other and to love each other? So I think, in a way, what Gene is kind of saying is that each of us right now, because it really feels to me, as I go into the energy of tomorrow is a pivotal day in the life of every person on this planet. That maybe as we go to sleep this evening, we're going to make a choice. Are we going to go into the positive timeline that I believe we're in, or might we wander over into the other one? We have the choice, and regardless which choice you make, the individual or the soul is going to have lessons. They're going to learn something from that. I mean, think about this. Why would a person, be a criminal or kill other people? Why is the soul doing that? Is it to balance karma? In other words, maybe they were in some other lifetime where they were, doing these things, and so they continue to it, and then they get punished in this lifetime, or they become the victim. In other words, they were a killer in another lifetime, and so they go through and get killed in this life. These are questions that are very hard, to answer from a human perspective. But from Creator's perspective, according to the answer he told me, Creator wants to experience every conceivable reality. So that means each one of us is unique, and whatever experiences we have is perfect. It's in divine order. But I think tomorrow is one of those days where, on a spiritual soul level, every one of us is going to make a choice where we want to see the future. Which future do we wish to have? And I'm just saying, if we all just pray, ask for God's guidance, visualize in our mind that we could and will eventually see this future in our lifetime, a positive future, then that is where we will go. And, it might sound kind of crazy or whatever, but everything is consciousness and choice. So, I just believe we're going, in this timeline, this is a positive timeline, even though we may not know exactly what are the sequence of events that are going to bring us there. So I hope that makes sense to your listener.
Yeah, Josh, you just said, all this stuff that, you've been introducing for the last 45 minutes, may sound crazy, but at the start of the show, quipped, just kind of following, what I was saying about the dualities of today's world, and you made the statement about summarize the opening sentence of Tale of Two Cities, with the best of times, and reminded me about Scrooge's journey to, with the ghost of Christmas past, where he went to see his elementary school, and the little Ebenezer couldn't see his future self and the ghost in the room, but the ghost and Ebenezer could hear the little boy, entertaining himself because his parents never bothered to get him for Christmas vacation and bring him home for the holiday. With this, that story is written in like 1843, for the 1843 Christmas or something like about that time. Dickens seems like he was covering this interdimensional travel. I don't know if that is similar to these timelines that you're talking about. It seems like there might be some overlap.
Yeah.
But there, the commonality of the Scrooge example and what you've been discussing about the timelines is that the people can have the powerful epiphanies and change and pay the reward the kid for bringing the goose back, and they're taking it to the Tiny Tim's, the Cratchit family, and that. But there does become a spirit of generosity. I think with these like the near-death experience that you had, and get the Hollywood poltergeist version, like going into the light and stuff like that. Are these worlds and experiences that are outside of our normal everyday lives? Is that all created by God?
Well, when you ask the question like this, I think God is the painter. He's created these infinite realities and landscapes where the soul can pick which one it wants to go into to learn and grow in its experience. So, because I believe that at the highest level we do have free will, okay? And in some communications I've heard related to, people having contact with extraterrestrials and galactics, I don't know if the free will that's been given to humanity is the same as happens for like some other races. But here on this planet we have free will. We get to decide, what experiences do we want? And the thing always to remember about an experience is, let's say you want to create a new business and you have like 50 different ideas, and you keep asking her, which one do you think is the best? The bottom line is, it doesn't matter which one is the best or which is the worst. The key is you take the step, you go through the experience, and you find out what works for you and what doesn't. And if it doesn't work for you, or you have a bad experience or whatever, then when you go back into it, you can either continue that bad experience, or you could say that didn't work for me, I'm going to try something different. So so in a way, that's what I think we're at, that juncture right now, where a lot of people are saying maybe this is on an unconscious level. The world that we live in, it's really it's too divided. we should want to create a world where there's more harmony and peace, where everybody has everything that they could possibly need, so that they can explore whatever they want in life, including the possibility, which is what I believe is going to happen in this timeline, and maybe not in the so far future, where we say, there are these galactic beings now that are here, and I want to go to their planet. I want to see what their world is like, and that we may have the possibility to continue our exploration beyond just this planet or Earth. Now, another thing we discussed before we did this interview is we were going to talk about the first novel that I've ever been involved in to write, which has been published, called Journey into the Unknown and Back Again.
Right.
And I think if you allow me to speak about this story, part of what we're talking about, I think, is kind of covered in there.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting, it's a thinly veiled autobiographical book?
Well, in a lot of ways, I was forced as I was thinking about the main character. And if you look at the picture on the cover, the main two characters, the man and the woman, the married couple, it's a picture of Katrina and myself, but in a great degree, as I was taking these main characters through their experiences, and of course I had to have help from my friend Karen Tucker, because I'm not a novelist. It's like when I read a book, I don't care about, like I'm reading, the Shannara books by, I have one here, Terry Brooks. He's very good at describing the colors around you and the scene and what's going on. That's not my gift, so I needed help from Karen in order to color and make sure that all the descriptions were there. But I was good at the conversations between the characters and the situations that came up and the purpose for it. So anyway, let me just kind of explain the idea of the story. First of all, I remember the idea of the story came. I remembered the exact moment when I was going with Katrina. We were living in the Seattle area, and we were going to a local restaurant, which I think kind of, either I ordered pancakes or, they specialized in pancakes. I can't remember exactly the name of it. But as soon as I touched the handle of the door, I instantly had this story come to me. And basically, I was asking myself a question. What could I do? How could I tell a story or come up with some scenario where some main character is able to receive cosmic knowledge and information and bring it back to people to awaken them. And as people wake up to who we are as divine children of God, that this activation of revealing who we are brings peace to the planet. How could I do that? What could I say? And then the idea for the story came, and the idea of the story is that the male character, who I call Joseph Schwartz, is given an opportunity to go through a dimensional door. That's what you see on the cover. You actually see Joseph Schwartz holding a blue crystal skull, which is, of course, what I talked about the last time I was on your show.
Right.
So this blue crystal skull I was looking for in Peru shows up in the story. So that's why I always link the two books together. And it changes his vibrational frequency so he can go through this door. And he goes up to what we might say is the other side. Okay? But in this first book, I have to explain, well, how did this invitation by spirit come up? What experiences did he have? What clues did he have that something was coming up? So what I did is I just incorporated into the main character of Joseph Schwartz, from my own experiences and from different world mysteries that people are very fascinated by, like the Philadelphia experiment as mentioned, or Sasquatch. And there was a contact I had in Mount Shasta with someone who felt like it was a brother, but I kept seeing him very tall, and I kept felt, and I know that he was part of the Lemurians that live in the underground city in Mount Shasta. He was talking with me, so I felt like, I got to bring that up. And then I brought up where the main character, before he goes to this dimensional door in Peru, which is in exactly the area where I was looking for the blue skull. So I just decided, okay, we'll just put that door there, because I felt like there could be a dimensional door in that area, this high up in the Andes Mountain. I did take a trip to Australia, but I never went to the sacred site. And by the way, they don't like to be called the Aboriginal people. They like to be called the original people. The original people have a sacred place called Uluru. Ayers Rock was the name given by the Australians, but to the original people, it's Uluru. And so, I was guided to bring the main character there. So he's going to different places, and he's meeting different crystal skulls. But the essence of this book is if he could go to the other side and then come back, because normally if you go to the other side, you have a near-death experience, you die, you pass away. No, in this case, he's going fully aware, although when he comes back, he's not going to be able to remember everything, which again is similar to an experience I had when I was in the presence of the most famous crystal skull, the Mitchell Hedges crystal skull. I remember after I saw it the very first time, which I think was like in 1996, I saw it at a conference in Texas. I went into some altered space, and everything about reality I saw was so simple. Why couldn't I see the simplicity? But then when I woke up the next morning, I couldn't go back into that state of mind that it had brought me in because of the high vibrational frequencies around the skull. So the people on the other side, I don't like to give this story away too much, but I have to say this, and this I thought was a very unique thing, is I thought, okay, so like what happens for people, like, my coma experience, I went somewhere else, but I wasn't in my body, so I can't bring back proof that this really happened to me. You either believe me or you don't believe me. You either think I'm crazy, or it makes sense when I'm telling you that I'm at this meeting and they're talking about the future of the Earth. And that's the reason why I know when the COVID started that it wasn't what they were saying. There's no way. This is my personal opinion. I'm sure there will be people who will agree and disagree on this. But there's no way that all these people got sick or died. I don't know where they were coming up with these numbers. It never made any sense to me. But anyway, I had to find a way how this character, if he went to the other side, that all of his experiences could be recorded. Okay? And so I had a vision of that in a session where they're speaking to spirits, like in a trance session. And again, this was modeled after the skull experiment that happened in England, where, people are sitting around the table and they're meditating, and then the voice of spirit speaks outside in the room. That's what happened to this group. And I was in the room where that was taking place one time, and, that's another story for a future time. But that group claimed that there were a lot of objects that were apported. And an apport, for those who don't know what that is, that's where something seemingly comes out of nowhere. And we do have a crystal skull that we went to a session when we were in Seattle with, a physical medium, and out of his mouth were coming all kinds of objects after he finished channeling an ascended master that evening. And one of them was a crystal skull, and he knew exactly who that was supposed to go to. And when I held it, it had a very, very high vibration, but now it's integrated into the physical. So this, a type of camera, advanced camera, is imported when he's in this session. And so what I came up with is that there is a physical camera that was imported to him, and then when he goes through the dimensional door, there's another camera on the other side. And gosh, I always forget what this is called. The scientists have this theory where there are two objects, and no matter where they are in time and space, they're always connected. and it has to do with the quantum computers also. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a name for that. I'm sure one of your listeners will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure someone's shouting at the TV right now, or the radio. It's like,
Joshua and Mark, it's this. Why can't you think about that? I mean, like in Sliders, which is where they go into parallel universes, I remember they were talking about this. I can't remember what it is, but it's where two particles are connected. So these two cameras were like interconnected. So whatever he was recording his experience in the higher vibrational frequency, the camera and the physical was receiving all of that. And then when he comes back, even though he may not be able to remember all the experiences, all the conversations he had with spirits or galactics, or actually I saw him eventually going and speaking with Creator at one point, all that knowledge and information gets recorded on the camera, and then when he comes back it plays, and it's like, 3D, a 3D movie like we have now, or with the goggles that they sell where you go into these worlds in 3D and it figures like you're there. But the key about it is that he was receiving the answers to every question that we have as a human being about who are we, where do we come from, what is our purpose in the universe, what's our relationship, to this amazing reality we find ourselves in. So as he shares that, 3D movie of his experience in conversation with people, it flips people, and then we get kind of like the 100th monkey effect, where after a certain amount of people are woken up, all of a sudden everybody's awakened and world peace happens. So this is a story which one medium I talked to that I was trying to work with for the story said, how do you know, Joshua, this isn't something that's going to happen to you in the future? You're writing about what's going to happen to you in the future, or am I writing about a parallel self in another timeline who has already gone through this experience and is relaying it to me to write it as a story, a paranormal novel in this reality, trying to say, hey, here is a possible scenario how world peace can happen. So I'm kind of feeling, this is the last comment I want to make before we go into your next one. I feel like where we were on December 21st, 2012. Remember? All these people were meditating, and I was told that after we all did what we did, that on an inner level, we set in motion the vibrational frequencies and energies that are going to take us to the golden age, to the new dawn, to paradise. And that even though we might not see those energies physically manifest, that, they would start to show themselves. And then there were a bunch of people on December 21st, 2020, who did a meditation. And purportedly, the original people were doing something in Uluru also. And I linked into their meditation, and it was extremely powerful for me. I think I was meditating with one of my crystal skulls and listening to some special music or whatever. It took me a long time to come back from that. So basically what my point is what we are seeing right now, whether it's the light versus the dark, undeclared war on consciousness, we are going through this transformation. This is part of the transformation that's going to take us into the golden age. Every one of us is being challenged right now. And the solution is going to be, how willing are we willing to work together? Right now here in America, and I don't see this as political, but there's people, one side of people who are against another side of people. And the one side of people is trying to stop the other side from sharing. Why are they censoring all these people? President of the United States has been censored by social media. So there is a battle of consciousness that's going on. But I believe that no matter what's going to happen tomorrow or going forward into the future, or if Rjis really, what he's showing me, 2037, 2040, we have total peace by then. This reality, I'm convinced, is going to be a positive timeline. So even if tomorrow doesn't go the way that you would like it to go, and I'm talking to your listeners regardless, I mean, for some people would say, okay, I like Trump, and now he's leaving, or I want to see Biden president, or some people are saying no one will be inaugurated tomorrow. I mean, every conceivable possibility is shared out there, okay? And what that represents is the infinite timelines, that for whatever possibility you think, there is a timeline. Now, I asked Gene Decoder, okay, so I'm going to share what he said, because I asked him a question specifically for this interview. Okay, now what the people need to understand about Mr. Decode is that his gift to see multiple timelines came because he died in 1992. In August of 1992, he literally died. He went in front of God. This is what he said, what he shared on the show. And God said, I want to send you back to help the people and be of service. Do you want to go? And he said, yes, I'm willing to go. So he claims it was not a near-death experience because, I don't know, he called it a gold cord. You know, this cord we have purportedly that connects our physical body to our spiritual body, and when you die, that cord breaks. He doesn't have that cord, he said. But somehow, through the power of Creator or God or his soul or his spirit, you know, it's energizing him. Now, this is what he said as far as what he remembered, because he said when he was with God, he saw all the different timelines, all the possibilities, okay? As he said, when the timeline that he was originally on, we destroyed the planet in 2008. Then he found himself in another timeline, and they destroyed themselves in 2012, which some people thought here that maybe December 21st, 2012, that was the end of our world. But really what the minds were saying is it was the end of their calendar, and then their calendar started again. So it was kind of like a death and a rebirth, but it wasn't the end of the earth. So I asked him straight on, so the listeners can decide if they agree with this or not. I don't think this is political. I think it's curiosity to know what might the future hold on this timeline, which he says is positive. And he said two things to me. He said there's going to be an emergency broadcast, but he didn't say when. So in other words, someone, whoever that is going to make an emergency broadcast about what's going on so people are more comfortable, and that there will be a rest. And that's what he told me. So whether this is going to happen, whether this is what's tomorrow, because I can't figure out why do they need 65,000 military troops around Washington, D.C.? That's kind of overkill.
Right. I agree.
You know, so, but what is it really about? I mean, we can speculate and say, well, you know, Biden doesn't need that many troops. Is there something else that could happen? Is there maybe, like some people are saying, you know, maybe the Chinese might do something? We have to go and see through it. So I think it's really cool that we're speaking the evening before what I believe is going to be another day that will be like people in the future will say, you know, on January 2021, that was a special day. That changed the world. Something, I don't know what it's going to be, how it's going to go, but something, I'm expecting something unusual, unique, amazing is going to happen that is forever going to change our world and our future. So I prefer to look at it as something of a positive nature, that whatever happens, it will take us to the world that Rjis shows me in 2037, 2040, where the galactics are walking amongst us. There is no hunger or peace. He also describes you live like in communities or cities, and all the people are family to each other. All the adults are parents to all the children. You know, it's just really a very harmonious, peaceful world. It is possible for us to create this, and also with the talk of the advanced technologies which we do have, which have not been totally shared with all of humanity yet, gifted to us by the galactics, whether it's med beds or teleportation devices, a very advanced computer system for a new system of banking, or I can't say banking because if this system comes the way they're describing, then banks will no longer be needed. I mean, it's going to be revolutionary changes. And so I'm very excited personally to see what's going to happen. I don't have any fear or doubt. I know and I can only say this as a single individual, as your brother, I believe fully and 100% what Gene says. We're on a positive timeline, and we do not need to know the sequence of events that are going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of indications of that, of course. How do we explain some of the power outages that have happened recently?
That's been noted.
Right. There's been a lot of countries where the governments are falling apart. What's that all about? I mean, these have to be signs. And also, we now have a Space Force. I didn't realize this, but in, I think it was 2019 or 2000.
Yeah, it's like a couple years old.
Right. We have a Space Force. And the only thing I can explain about that is that's the way of UFO disclosure, is that, oh yeah, we've had this Space Force, for a number of years, and we've been working with different galactic beings, and, they'll come up with some reason they couldn't share it. They'll probably say something like, we didn't know if people were quite ready for this. But, it makes logical sense. We cannot be the only intelligent life that exists in the universe. So there's a lot of really interesting things that could be coming up here. So I'm excited about what I think is going to start tomorrow, and another level of awakening and elevation and revealing.
Okay, and Joshua, you mentioned the golden age is still ahead of us. We're just trying to get on the path to it. But in your journey into the unknown and back again, and your novella, the Messages of Rjis, you do have your recountings of trips to, like Sedona. You mentioned Mount Shasta, Sedona, Peru, Brazil. There's a photo of you in northern Peru on horseback. You've had a chance to do some pretty extensive travels. You mentioned
probably because I'm an Aries. I need the variety, I need the challenge.
Okay.
And plus, it's a good way to learn about all of humanity, because we have so many different cultures on the planet. So the only way you can really get a sensing of it, you need to go there and travel and honor the people. Like one of my keys when I do lectures in foreign countries, I will try to speak in their language first before, if I need a translator. And I found, for some reason, Portuguese, so I must have had some past lives where I was speaking Portuguese, that I started just talking in Portuguese, and they understood me, and I was literally doing the lecture just in Portuguese. I did live in Holland. I wasn't able to master the Dutch as much. I only remember a few words, and I was at an advantage because in Europe English is the common language. So
right,
so in Holland all the children were learning English, so the people would talk to me in English, and when they talk in Dutch, I would just try to be polite, but I wouldn't have any clue what they were saying because they were talking too fast.
Yeah, when you're dealing with people from so many backgrounds, the shaman that you spent time with them in Peru, the original people in Australia. When you're dealing with people from such divergent backgrounds, are they seeing a similar golden age? Is there a consensus
I think so. I think they all have their prophecies. Of course, in Peru, it's the condor and the eagle. 1 second here. Take a drink. They have the prophecy of the condor and the eagle. The condor is their bird in Peru that's sacred to them, the eagle for the Americas, Native Americans. So when the shamans of the north meet the shamans of the south, this was a sign to them that their prophecies of an age where people wake up and live together in harmony and consciousness. Because, for most of the indigenous people, that's what I would call these people, they have total respect for the Mother Earth and life, and they have their own spirituality that they follow. And, even though the modern world, as they started spreading out and meeting them, called them savages and primitives, these people have a lot to teach us. And going forward, in order for our world to have harmony, it has to be the marriage of the spiritual and the physical. And the physical would also include the scientific. Like I believe in Atlantis, if I can remember the past lives I had there, they had that beautiful balance in marriage between the scientific and the spiritual. They worked hand in hand together with each other. So, and I believe that's where we're going towards now, is we're going to go back to that place. But before we can get there, all the challenges that we have going on now, we have to go through that and to release the old for the new, and to want to love and work together and kindness and so on. So everything is coming out right now, and then that's why we have all these different possibilities of what may happen tomorrow, what's going to happen in the future. Is it going to be a time of great celebration, or will it be a time of fear and panic? I feel like, before I was born, I chose to be here at this time to try to help however I could, and I don't have access to the resources I would like to have to be able to do all the projects that are living inside of me, although I'm recognizing now that I'm getting older that I can't do everything like I used to. It used to be a one-man show. Whatever needed to be done, I would count on myself to do it no matter what, but I just can't do that anymore. Unfortunately, I have to admit and humble myself, but I have to usually take a nap in the afternoon. I can't keep going like I used to. But the point of it is that, as we all come together and work together and share our skills and our talents and our abilities, this is how we're going to create the golden age. And I believe that the more we have challenged, the more that greater good essence inside of ourselves will be propelled outwardly. People will see things about themselves they never knew, good qualities or abilities and talents, whether it's spiritual gifts or creative gifts. But there's, I think what the key is for right now is to not try to figure out how things are going to happen into the future. Go day by day. But visualize the positive future. Look at the signs that Spirit gives you if you're on a spiritual path. Synchronicity and being spontaneous is very important. I think the balance between the masculine and the feminine is also picking up now. Like the way I work, as a man, my femininity is not going to be the same as it would be for a woman, but it's being quiet and listening, okay, for today, what would be a good thing for me to focus on today? Oh yeah, we got that radio show coming up with Mark. And look at when we're speaking, please, Spirit, or my guides, or Creator, whatever, put the right words in my mouth so as the people listening tonight or into the future, that they'll be inspired to know that we are on a positive timeline, that everything is going to eventually work itself out, and that the divine is involved in this process. God is involved in this process, and God also works through each of us in a unique way. So I'm, just trying to be open to listen as you ask your questions, or as I get inspired. What can I say to people? And it's not about, one, you have to go in a certain way or prove somebody else is wrong. I think the crystal skull, especially Mitchell Hedges' skull, when I saw it the last time, which was when the Indiana Jones film came out, right before, it put me into the neutral. And being in the neutral means it's not my job to change somebody else, but I'm there to help them if they give permission, and I have to accept who they are, their strengths and their weaknesses. And I may not agree with, what they're doing or what they're saying, but that's the right that he or she has, because it's going to take them on their own journey. So we're on a big journey right now, and we have the potential of the most amazing things that could begin to open up for us, probably beyond what most people can even imagine. And that's what I think is ahead of us.
Yeah, and Joshua, you do present your time setting as being 2037 for the new dawn.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that by the time we get what your future self tells you, it is that there's kind of like a new world order that actually works.
Well, I don't know if I would call it new world order, but there is a collective.
Yeah.
Well, this is a vision I had. This would be a better way. A council. Let's call it a council of humanity that will guide, which will be representatives from all over the world. At this future, there won't be countries anymore, is what I think.
Yeah, I probably didn't use the right term, but it's a government that actually is doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, I think it's pretty much like what President Trump said in his farewell speech today. He was saying American principles and concepts about, governing people and treating people in a fair and equitable manner, and we, the people, co-creating this. So that's what I see for the future. But I see, kind of like a council, and there'll be representatives from this council who will be having contact with the galactics, and, there will be exchanges. And believe it or not, I feel this very strongly, because I will reveal to your audience who I really think I am. Is a galactic wanderer, which is what George Hunt Williamson, our early UFO contactee in the 50s, was writing about. It makes sense for me. Why am I traveling all over the world? And, why in my sessions, my private sessions I have with people, a lot of star people, people who feel like, they may come from another planet or universe on the soul level, but chose to be here to help Mother Earth and humanity to go into this peaceful future. A lot of star people, I find, come to me to have these sessions, which I see in their eyes. There's a sparkle in their eyes.
Do they? So they're recognizing you?
Well, sometimes. I mean, like when I was in Peru one time, some of the people felt like I had been an Inca before. Like I had that spirit of the Inca, or maybe, when you immerse yourself in the vibrational frequency of a certain place, then those past lives where you were there come more forward. So the Cosmic Wanderer is a group of beings who go from planet to planet to help bring it into the light. So it could mean if that's what I do, if that's who my higher essence is, then the star people just recognize me as someone who came and helped them, their world, to go into paradise or peace or whatever. According to, because I did ask Mr. Decode about this, what he had seen, he made a comment, I remember in an interview, saying that 96% of the other planets are living in the way that I believe that we will be going into, a more peaceful, harmonious place. So,
but Joshua, earlier you said on Lemuria, there's the balance that people wanted between science and religion.
That was in Atlantis.
Oh, but
it was probably in Lemuria too.
But it shows that there's a precedent that we can go back to, learn from, and make for a better future.
Yes, I believe that there have been golden ages on the earth in the past, like during Lemuria and Atlantis, and probably there's been other civilizations too, which we may not be aware of, that they had this marriage of, spirit and science, physical reality. So it's cyclic. You go from one extreme to another. I'm not sure though if going forward into the future, if the Earth will again regress. If we have this, positive future as I see, I'm not really sensing that we're going to have the great challenges that we have now, the great diversity, the division, so much anger or so-called negativity towards certain individuals or groups. So I think that's why it's very important what's happening, what we're going through right now, is, that's why it's a battle. Those who want to stay where we are, where we don't accept who we are as divine beings, that it's just physical, and this happened in Atlantis too, according to Edgar Casey. When Atlantis was destroyed the last time, there was a group that was purely into the physical. I forget what he called it, something like Bahal or something like that. And then there were the children of the light. And the children of the light could see that Atlantis was going to go. I think I was there. At least this was the visions I had in Peru, that in the lifetime in Atlantis when it was destroyed, I went on a flying craft. I was taking sacred artifacts from Atlantis to bring it to the South America area, because I could see in the future those sacred artifacts would be necessary to help humanity, to come back to a time of peace, which the crystal skull certainly would fit into that I've been involved in for a long time.
And how, with these crystal skulls that, or some of them, that were, you're saying, several other people say that they originated from the time of Atlantis and Lemuria. How do they fit in with all of your prophecies?
Well, the one main prophecy that various indigenous people have talked about is what they call an original set of 13 crystal skulls. Now, in the first book I did on the crystal skulls, The Mystery of the Crystal Skulls Revealed, with Bowen and Nasserino, there was one individual, I remember we interviewed Michael Kemp, which I have no idea where he is, who was talking about Atlantis, that in Atlantis they had various healing temples. Like each healing temple had their own crystal skull, so there could have been 13 healing temples in Atlantis, but that also they would bring them all together, one in the center surrounded by 12, and that when this happened, it would create a very powerful energy vortex that would link into, I guess, universal frequencies and energies and bring that back down into the earth. So, however, the Mayans have talked about 52 crystal skulls, because 52 is a sacred number, and 52 is 4 times 13. So my guess, or my interpretation of what that meant, is that, and actually in the story I haven't published, Crystal Skull Chronicles, this does come out, that there are 4 indigenous sacred peoples, each who have a set of 13 skulls. And actually in my story I only show 13, but this is what I think the Mayans are saying, is that each of these 4, let's say indigenous people, Mayans could be one, maybe Inca, Native American, some group of Native American, maybe even the Druids, I don't know who, but 4 different indigenous type groups, spiritual type groups which still exist. They have their own set of 13. So there were 4 sets of 13. The number 13 is very significant because it comes up repeatedly in many world religions. Mm-hmm. The Christ and the 12 apostles. In Judaism, which I was brought up under, the priests, the Levites, and the 12 tribes of Israel. And it's even said that within our solar system, there are 12 planets around the sun, and that we have this 12 and 1. So this consistently comes up in many different cultures. And if somebody's saying, well, where are the other planets? George Hunt Williamson said there could be a planet in front of Mercury, which we see periodically against the sun, and possibly 2 planets beyond Pluto, although Pluto, they keep vacillating whether it's a planet or not. And that doesn't include another planet that I believe within our solar system, which is the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, which I had it in my head and I just lost it.
You're talking about the asteroid belt?
Yeah, but it used to be a planet, and I had the name of it in my head, and again, it vanished. But I think people know, will be familiar with that there was a planet there. It was very warlike. It blew itself off. George Hunt Williamson says the moons of Mars are artificial. They had to build them so Mars would not go out of its orbit when Maldek, that's the name of the planet, blew itself up. So, so I believe what's going to happen as we go into this so-called golden age is the true history of our world is going to come out. And we're going to understand, where did humanity come from? Where we brought here by galactics? Did we develop through natural evolution? All that history, it's going to come out. And, I just have this vision in my head. I had it when I was in Brazil. I saw people dancing and singing in the streets and celebrating life. So I think this is where we're headed. Do you mind if I tell my best Jewish joke so we can bring in a little humor to our conversation?
Joshua, this is 2 hours devoted to your uplifting insights. Go ahead. We're encompassing of everyone.
Okay, so I'm going to try to act it out a little bit. So we have a father, a priest, and a rabbi, and they're having a conversation about how they decide what portion of the money they receive from their congregation they keep and what they give to God. So the father says, well, this is what I do. I draw a line in the ground, and I take all the money I have and I throw it up into the air, and whatever lands on one side I keep, and the other side I give to God. The priest says, well, I kind of do something similar, except I draw a circle in the ground and do the same thing, throw the money up in the air, whatever lands inside I keep, and outside I give to God. Now, as I mentioned, I was brought up in Judaism, so I have been around rabbis. I remember when I was bar mitzvahed at 13, I had to read from the Torah, and there was a rabbi there, and I think he said I did a pretty good job of reading, because you have to memorize how to sing and read the words, because in the Torah there are no vowels. These little dots you see around the Hebrew letters are vowels, so you have to memorize it. So anyway, I know about rabbis. So here's my presentation of the Jewish rabbi. So the rabbi, first of all, the rabbi is stroking his beard. Every rabbi has a beard, and he's thinking. He doesn't answer right away. And then he says, you know what, you guys? You're doing it totally, totally wrong. What you should do is take all the money you have, throw it up into the air, and let God take what he wants. So that's my joke. Because I thought it's appropriate because, we're speaking about God today, that the divine is involved. So it's kind of like the situation we have here on the planet. We just need to throw it up to God and let him create what's going to be on down here, and trust that he, she, we have to say he, she, it's not just the he, is going to decide what is going to be the best for us, to be inspired by Creator's angels, by our cosmic brothers and sisters. They're all around us. They love us. They're rooting for us, that we get this done right, that because we have within us the capability to manifest this future. Nothing can stop us, okay, except ourselves. So, I'm a positive cheerleader, I guess. I just believe there's no other conceivable possibility. It's going to happen, and we're going to all have a great time. We're going to have a lot of parties. That was one of the things that I was able to do in Brazil, which I couldn't do in the United States as much, as the Brazilians know how to party. And when I went there, and let me tell you this story. When I went there the first time, I was a speaker at a metaphysical conference. I was talking about UFOs and crystal skulls.
Right.
And, I had a group of people who felt connected to me, like soul family. Actually, one of my wives was Brazil, who I met during this time. So here's what the Brazilians did. After the conference was over, they had a party to celebrate with the helpers and the speakers and the organizers. You know what the Brazilians did? They looked at me and they said, Joshua, we want you to try this drink. Okay? They were telling me I had to have this drink. It was their custom. And they wouldn't tell me what was in the drink. Of course, it was very strong alcoholic. And so as I'm drinking it, they're all laughing at me. So I just remember that they really understood how to have a party and celebrate and love each other and enjoy each other's company. And even though I wasn't Brazilian, they made me feel like I was a part of their family. So, I miss Brazil. I haven't been there for a while. But that's, one of the special memories. So that's what I see for our future. We're going to have parties every day. You wake up, you go out of your house, you see your neighbor. What happens now is you don't even know your neighbor. You hardly have any conversation. You only talk to your neighbor if there's a package for you that goes to them. Right. But you wake up, you go outside, you see your neighbor. Oh, how are you doing? And you hug and you start singing to each other and dancing. Isn't it a great day? Aren't we so lucky to be alive? That's what I see is going to be our future. That celebration, that joy. We're going to feel that inner joy of God that's truly inside of our spiritual heart. I mean, when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, that's what I feel. Like sometimes when I'm playing my music, I play guitar. I have my special Crystal Skull theme song, and I just let go. I let the music take me away. I've had people come up and say how touched they were, even though probably my singing isn't that great. My father always told me, please don't play for other people. You're singing, I don't know. I just don't like your singing, but I think it's all right. I think it's okay. What was really strange, that brings up another experience I had. I was meditating in a crop circle in England with crystal skull I have near me for this interview, Portal de Luz, my 10-pound smoky quartz skull made by Brazilian carbon. So I was able to take Portal de Luz back to Brazil and Peru so he could experience those energies. So I'm meditating in a crop circle that looks like a yin-yang pattern. It's close to Avebury Stone Circle.
So you're in Wiltshire?
Yeah, so I'm in England, Wiltshire. And Portal de Luz, now this is something we didn't talk about, but my experience is this particular skull and some of the other skulls we have, they do talk with me. I hear them in my mind's voice. And I think Portal's reminding me of this experience we had together. So the question is, if I do a meditation with a crystal skull, could I affect the vibrational frequency inside of the crop circle? Because if you want to know how to tell whether a crop circle is real or not, if it's a real one, the energy spirals in one direction. So if you walk against the energy, it makes you dizzy and, you can't focus. And when you walk with the energy, you feel alive and heightened. So my thought is that at the center of the crop circle is where the main energy is. So first, before I meditate with Portal, I put him near the crop circle, and another friend who was with me, and the crop circle researcher who took us there and had a electromagnetic measuring device that went from -100 to 100. We all saw like what looked like a spiraling energy inside of the crystal skull. Now, Portal de Luz is a light shade of gray, and as I'm looking at him right now, it's really hard to discern specific images because he has many layers and lattices inside of him. But I remember seeing a spiraling energy spiraling in and spiraling out inside of the crystal skull. And the other people said they saw that too. So this is important to explain my experience here. So anyway, I said, okay, so I'm going to sit near the center. I'm going to meditate with my crystal skull, and I'm going to use Portal de Luz is the name of the skull, Portal of Light, his favorite music, which is Pachelbel, or they say in German, Pachelbel, Pachelbel's Canon in D.
Okay.
So I'm listening to that music while I'm meditating with him. As soon as I start doing the meditation, I remember I felt like there was a cone of energy that surrounded us, like I was in some other reality. And then halfway into the song, I just feel inspired, and this happens to me sometimes. Either I have to dance or I have to sing because the music just inspires me. I can't hold it back. So I'm inspired to kind of sing out. There are no words in the song, but I'm kind of singing with the melody, and it feels like, I'm doing a really great job. I'm in total harmony with that. And then the meditation ends, song ends, and as I come out, people are looking at me and saying, what music were you singing with? So apparently I was not singing Pachelbel's Canon in D. I was doing something else. But the key that happened to this is through the crop circle researcher, we were his name was David, I can't remember his last name. This is so bad when you get older that you can't remember the names of things or people's names. But David was his first name. So David took a measurement at the center of the crop circle before I started the meditation, and it was 0. But Portal de Luz was showing inwardly through this vortex spiraling up and down that it was moving so fast that it was negating itself, and that's why it was 0. And then after I did the meditation with Portal de Luz, Pachelbel's Canon, and there's one picture I have from this that I share sometimes. And we put him into the center and then measured the energy in the center. It was plus 100. So I don't know what happened during the meditation, working with the crystal skull, working with the music. Somehow there was a special energy generated, and it was able to make a difference in the energy of the crop circle. And so that was just very interesting for me.
I was just trying to think when we had Lucy Pringle as a guest. She has.
Yeah, I've spoken to her before. She's a really good crop circle researcher.
Yeah, that might have been probably a couple
of years ago.
Yeah, a couple years ago. I thought her book was very informative, and you were talking about the vibrations. But she was in her co-authored book. She and her partner researcher did examine the possibility that the patterns were generated from energies coming out of the earth. It wasn't like a UFO hovering over the field of barley and making it spin around. Like so when you were sitting there meditating, did you feel something coming up through the earth?
No.
Okay.
No. And I've been to various crop circles. I believe that the crop circles are created by an intelligence. I mean, it has to be. Look at the crop circle that showed up where we send out into space, this disk with using some kind of binary code or dots or dashes to represent us. And some ETF responded back with a crop circle with a similar pattern, except how they looked, or this crop researcher, David, said, after the crop circles started appearing, Parliament said, no, these are being done by these groups of people who are going out late at night and, they're using sticks and whatever, and they're making them. Yeah. And then the next day after they had that conversation in Parliament, on a secret military base where nobody could get in, a crop circle appeared. So,
they aren't hoaxes.
No. Now, there are fake ones, and I think I visited a couple of fake ones where I didn't feel any energy whatsoever. And there are ones that have been created that have an unbelievable patterns inside of them that has to be created by an intelligence. And I think, to me, it's very simple. Hey, you're not alone in the universe. There's other intelligences that are around you. And if we make these crop circles, then we're communicating with you, but we're doing it in a friendly way. Because a lot of people, even people who believe in UFOs, said, I know they're there and so on, but if an extraterrestrial just manifested out of the clear blue sky, like teleported in front of them, even for me or you, I don't know, how are we going to deal with that when we're really looking at a reality? We know that exists, but we have not experienced it directly before, in the physical. So I think because of that, the positive galactics have to be careful how they appear to us. But people who have met them, some of the whistleblowers or people who've worked on secret projects say, they just emanate this very loving, calm energy. And so you're not afraid of them. You feel good to be around them, to listen and to learn from them. And probably many of them will talk to us telepathically anyway. So I do have another story I could tell about this that was kind of linked to my book we talked about.
Sure. Josh, we still have about 13 minutes, so
okay.
Yeah, there's plenty of time.
Okay, so let me tell this story,
sure.
And then we'll give out the website again. We'll talk about how people can get the ebook or how they can listen to the interview that I did with Gene Decode yesterday, if they want to hear it. My friend who helped me, because we're creating a new website from Lude Marketing, he was the one who recorded it, and he told me before I came on, and I only put it out today, there were over 500 people that came to listen to this interview. I've never seen a video have so many people come at once. So anyway, let me tell you this last story, and then we'll talk about the free ebooks and the website and how to get to it and so on. So anyway, there was a person I met in Seattle. She was very talented as an artist, and actually quite a number of the illustrations in Journey into the Unknown and Beckoning came from her. This is one of the two Susans I worked with. We met her at a local center in Seattle when we lived there, and her specialty was she could draw spirit guides. So we asked Susan, and we said, Susan, what we would like to do is have you come to our apartment, and Katrina, my life partner Katrina, she gave her one of our skulls to hold, and then she said, now draw what comes to you from that, and I gave a crystal skull for her to hold. And I think the one I chose is the large rose quartz skull we have, which has the movable jaw called Rosalita, which is like 13 pounds. I don't know why I chose that one, but that was the one I wanted her to work with. So for Katrina, she drew like an Indian type of guide, a shaman. But for me, she drew a galactic, okay? And I didn't recognize who this was. This galactic felt female and had an elongated skull. And so I was always wondering, why would she do that? Why would she come up with this drawing? Well, there was a time where I was interviewing through Skype, just audio like we're doing here for your show, a friend who is very mediumistic, and we were talking about Arcturians. And she told me that I had a lifetime in Atlantis where I was, like a representative dealing with the galactics, and there was this female Arcturian who was kind of like a soul sister, and gave me the name and everything. And when she started talking about it, I started crying, and then I understood that's who Susan Drew from Rosalita was, this soul sister who was Arcturian. So I don't know, I think the other reason I'm telling you this story is because whenever I think about this female Arcturian, I always feel she's in a spaceship in a different dimension above the Earth, and I think many of the galactics are doing this right now, and they're beaming down tremendous positive, loving energy to us, so we can get past all these challenges in a very loving, kind way. I always feel her like, that's one of the spaceships that kind of watches over me, and whenever I think about her like I'm doing now, I feel an energy beam that comes into me, and like, we're talking telepathically. So I think, a lot of the galactics, if they show up, they're going to speak to us telepathically. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 free ebooks, because we only have about 9 minutes to go here. So there are 3 free ebooks I offer to all of your listeners, and probably the easiest way to obtain them is to send me an email, and I'll send you a link to the page where you can download them. So my email address is crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. If you send me an email, just put in the subject, heard you on the radio show, send me the 3 free ebooks. These free ebooks include a more than 100-page, I don't know people who make 100-page free ebooks to give out, it's not normal, on crystal skulls, which has been evolved and updated since 2004, when I first released it when I was living in Holland. That comes from Katrina and I. There's another free ebook that talks about, could we be in a computer simulation? I hope that the links I put in there for the videos, in other words, whoever is censoring videos, they haven't taken these videos off of YouTube, gives some evidence how this may be true, and also could possibly link to Maru, which is a huge stone door in the southern part of Peru by Lake Titicaca. That we meditated, which the local people there say that at times there are I forget how they call them, kind of like gods. They come through the stone door to see, and Jerry Wills was interviewed by the lady who did the animal mutilations, and I can't think of her name.
Molten Howe?
Exactly. And he was interviewed by her one time and talked about that a shaman told him how to tone, and he went through the door and on the other side, and I feel like when I meditated at that door with Portal de Luz that I was linking in to these scientists. They claimed to him, how did you get here? Oh, I walked through the door. You see this huge structure in front of you sitting on long poles or racks. That's where you came from. We created, that's a simulation we created to learn about our universe. It started with no life and life just showed up. That's where you came from. So this book talks about that possibility, why we may be in a computer simulation. And then the last free book is the message I received from Rjis when I was in Brazil. Also talks about my coma experience, gives some possibilities of how the golden age may happen in the future. And then the other thing you should tell me if, this idea of parallel Earths and the experiences that Gene has. And Gene gets into a lot more information than what we talked about, Gene Decode. I believe he really can see what's really happening. So, but you have to be ready to hear the good with the not so good, because he's talking about, these different forces that are at work right now and what's been going on. You talked about the DOMs, the underground military bases, and so on.
It's a...
you heard the interview.
No holds barred type interview.
Right. So either you believe him or you don't believe him. But he's the one that's talking about the different, timelines. And some of the people I heard from that watched it, they liked it very much. And
I too.
Yeah, and I just felt after I heard him talk on Spiritually Raw about this, I had to interview him. And Sunday, he came back and said, okay, I'm willing to do it. So we rushed really fast so we could interview him Monday. So if he said anything important, I could share it today. So if you email me, just say Gene's video, and I'll send you the link. It's on BitChute. And, I just sent out that link. We have a mailing list, too. Now, so contact me, again, via the email if you want the free ebooks or the link to Gene Decode's interview that we did, crystalskullexplorers@gmail.com. And as Mark said at the beginning, our website, I'm just going to go with the old one because the new one is still in flux, but I will send you to the new one for the free ebooks because we have a special page for that. It's CSE, like Crystal Skull Explorers, CSE.crystalskullexplorers.com. So, and the other thing I encourage your viewers is if there's some things you have questions about or something I said you resonate or an experience you had. I've had a couple of people write to me out of the clear blue with experiences. Feel free to write. I'm also interested to hear about other people's experiences too, and also how we can work together. So, Mark and Barbara, who's been helping, I want to thank you guys again for bringing me back. Hopefully what I've been talking about makes sense. I wasn't sure how I would do because normally at this time I'm not 100%, but I think once I got started,
You did great.
Yeah, I think the information was clear, and let's just pray for a positive future. Let's pray that good things happen tomorrow, and that whatever happens tomorrow is going to take us to an amazing 2021. That we're going to be partying and celebrating with each other, and if these medbeds exist, they're supposed to regress us in age. Not only take away any physical challenges or illnesses you have, but they have something that will regress you in age. Imagine being 20 or 30 again if you're, like my age or something like that. And that's how I understand, because I've always told people I'm going to be here till I'm at least 200, but I couldn't explain how that was possible. But with these advanced technologies that I believe that we have that will be released to the public, this is how we'll do it. So again, thank you so much, and always available to speak again, and I'm sure I'll be writing more books, and I'm still waiting to be inspired to write book number 2 of this trilogy, Journey into the Unknown and Back Again. We only have the first book, which takes Joseph Schwartz, up to about to step through the dimensional door, and book number 2 is where he's on the other side and what happens to him. So that one we've only written a little bit. So let's see what happens.
Part 1 was an interesting book. We will have you back, and
right. And on our website too, they can find this book under the store we have. So
we will continue the conversation. So Joshua, I just want to thank you so much for being our guest today and giving us much needed optimistic messages, and thank you, Barbara, for producing today's show, and we can call that a wrap, and we will see everyone next week.
Thank you, Mike.